Tampa Bay Transportation Management Area meeting. Commissioner Starkey is on her way, you said?
No, she's at a conference.
Oh, she's at a conference. So you're stuck with me as chair today. And so we'll get started as we always do. And let's start with the pledge. And then we'll do some introductions. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, let's go ahead and start with some introductions. And David, we'll start with you, work our way around the table, and then we'll work our way around the room. So,
good morning, everybody. David Green with T-Varna. Justin Willett, sorry.
Greg Slater, Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority.
Pat Kemp, the Hillsborough County Commission.
Hi, Andy Ross, City of Temple Terrace.
Lynn Herzog, Tampa City Council.
Johnny Wong, CPO Staff Director.
Deputy Mayor Nico Ritchie, Pasco MPO.
Tia Gorman, Executive Director of Pasco MPO.
morning, Whit Blanton.
Good morning, Gina Driscoll, St. Petersburg City Council.
Good morning, everyone. Janet Long, Pinellas County Commission Chair.
Good morning. My name's Dave Eggers, Pinellas County Commission. And we'll
Start with, how about you guys?
Kedar Davis, OIT Technician.
Dakota Stratton, OIT Technician.
Elizabeth Watkins, Hillsborough TPO.
Chelsea Camaro, Fort Pinellas.
Johnny Tours, Pasco MPO.
Scott Ferry, Pasco MPO staff.
Suzanne Monk, FDOT Government Liaison.
Billy Schmidt, FDOT staff.
Good morning, Brian Cordick with the Polk TPO staff.
Tony Stillo, aide to Commissioner Janet Long, Pinellas County.
Tom Whalen, City of St. Petersburg.
Richard Moss, FDOT.
Justin Hall, FDOT.
Brian Hunter, FDOT.
Wade Reynolds, Hillsborough TPO.
Wade Carroll with Pond & Company.
Annette Cruz Downs, Polk TPO.
Julia Davis, Polk TPO staff.
Christina McLaughlin, Polk TPO staff.
Lorenzo Thomas, Polk TPO staff.
And I'm Shannon Salter, Quest Corporation of America.
welcome, everybody. And the gentleman that just walked in, introduce yourself.
Parag Agrawal, Polk TPO.
Great.
I came at the right time.
Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item 2, approval of the September meeting. Thank you. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Chelsea is going to speak on the regional priorities.
All right, we don't have a formal PowerPoint for this, but it is in your packet, and we have a copy pulled up here. I'm sorry, microphone. Here on the screen in front of you. So this is our annual opportunity to take a look at the major regional priorities that we put forward as a region. These priorities, after approval today, are going to be transmitted to the broader SCTPA board, and we'll add in the projects from the surrounding counties as well. So this list right here is just the subset of the projects within the TMA region, the 3 counties, and we're only proposing some minor changes. You'll see at the top, we highlight a couple of the projects that have been recently completed because of our collective advocacy. And then we move into our funded priorities. And as a reminder, we do keep projects on the list until they're 100% completed, just in case additional funding or advocacy on behalf of the region is needed. So that's why those are shown there, even though they are funded or underway. One of your former priorities, the I-275 express lanes from 38th Avenue North up to 4th Street, is being included in the draft tentative work program. So that project has been elevated. So you'll see that's why it's highlighted there in the second set of projects. And then moving down to the unfunded priorities. These remain largely unchanged since last year, with the exception of a few minor changes due to updated status of projects based on the draft tentative work program. You'll see a couple of project limits that have changed. Some right-of-way has been funded, but the projects are still in need of additional funding. And at the bottom, there are 3 new projects that are being proposed for addition to the list within the 3-county area. The first 2 are in Hillsborough County. One is the Hart Heavy Maintenance Facility. The second is the Florida-Tampa Bus Rapid Transit Line from downtown Tampa up to USF. And the third is Pasco-Hernando County Line Road. These priorities were added at the request of the staff directors, and they're being brought to you today for your action and review. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them, but this is the proposed list for 2024.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you. This is an action item.
Any discussion? Any motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, overview of the regional report to the legislature. Who's going to do that?
Start and then let Johnny and Tina jump
Okay.
in.
Just to give everybody an update, when we last met, I think you can hear me okay. When we last met, we were asking you for approval of the memorandum of understanding, which has now happened. That's all been approved. What we are charged with doing now is submitting a report to the legislature. So you have the report as part of your packet. The report is really long, but it's only long because we've added as an appendix the 2018 TBARTA full study, which was about 150 pages or so. The bulk of the report to the legislature is an executive summary document that really just tries to answer the questions that the legislature asked us to address, which is what are the benefits of creating a regional MPO? What are the costs of doing so? And is it feasible? And to me, the MOU on its face means it's feasible, even though we haven't resolved all the issues related to the MOU. At least there is a path forward. We have asked each of the MPOs to review the report. I believe, Johnny, your MPO actually took a vote on the report. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, and then we can open it up for questions?
Yeah, there's not much to say other than we had a special meeting of the TPO board on November 17th to discuss this as well as some other issues of regional importance. Our board ultimately approved transmission of the report unanimously.
Speak a little closer so people can hear you out there. Yeah, thank you.
I hope that this is better. So yes, we had a special meeting of our Hillsborough TPO board on November 17th, and the board ultimately voted to approve the transmittal of this report to the legislature unanimously.
Tina, anything you want to add?
Our board, previously I had went to the board discussing the MPO merger. I had explained to them that we were going to transmit the report. And so they were in favor of transmitting the report once it came out and they reviewed it. We brought it to the chair for signature and now we are awaiting feedback.
And I guess I'll take this opportunity to congratulate Tania as being the full-time MPO director for Pasco, no longer interim. Welcome, good to have you at that table. So I did not take it to our full board, but we did email a copy of everything after Hillsborough considered it, so my board members have it. I briefed them on it at our last meeting, but we don't have a December meeting, and I didn't really want to do a special meeting. Where we're going next is Johnny is going to put together a transmittal letter, and we're going to send this mid-December or so to the legislature and the governor. That's the direction to the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. And then we're going to see what happens. I briefed our Pinellas legislative delegation 2 days ago. They didn't really have any questions, but I wanted them to make sure that they had all the information. What you'll find in the report is that there is a startup cost of that's broken into phases, and phase 1 is a startup cost of $500,000, which would be likely to begin at the earliest in January of 2025. We would probably seek to procure a management consultant and facilitator in the summer or fall of 24, so about a year from now, as we're adopting our long-range transportation plans. And that $500,000 would be to bring on that facilitator to work with us, work with the MPOs over the 2025 year to look at the structure of the board, look at the structure of the advisory committees, provide guidance on staffing and organization, and really just facilitate that dialogue. Again, that's about a year away, but because it's in FY25 and the legislature will be taking up that budget this year, we wanted to get this board's guidance and reaction to making a legislative request to have that $500,000 potentially provided by the legislature, since they wrote Senate Bill 425 that put this conversation at the forefront. The other option that we have, and Johnny and I have talked about this, and we think we should pursue both,
is to request funding from the Florida Department of Transportation through its budget rather than a legislative earmark. But the legislature, I talked to Ed Hooper, who's the senator from Pasco and Pinellas County in charge of the appropriations subcommittee for transportation. And Ed was very open to making a legislative request for this amount of money. So if that is the preferred avenue, then we can certainly do that. The value of maybe going through the department is that it's phase one, and phase two would be to bring aboard some planning consultants to help us create the documents that you need to stand up a new regional MPO. We wouldn't do that until we got confirmation that we're going down this path, because that seems like money that you wouldn't need to spend if we're not going to create a regional MPO. But the management consultant is needed to get to that, yes. And so if we went through the department, at least it might be a recurring expense for a couple of years before we stand up the MPO. So we can go into detail on how those costs were arrived at, but I wanted to maybe just turn it back open to the TMA leadership group to see if y'all had any questions about what we're submitting, about the funding request.
Any comments, questions? Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. So at the Hillsborough TPO, the board as a whole didn't really take a position on which route to seek funding. That wasn't something that we really went into detail on. There were a couple of things that the board unanimously felt was important to do early in this process, however, and I just wanted to communicate that to everybody here. That was, Hillsborough felt it was very important to do a couple things first. One is to provide some clarity on who exactly would need to approve this if we got to that point. There's still a little ambiguity about, we know Tampa has to approve it, but, does that extend to, we want to make sure the BOCCs in each county has to approve it. There's some, we all think we kind of know, but we'd like to provide some real clarity to that. And so that was number one. And number two is our members felt that it was important early on in this process to resolve or try to gain consensus on the composition of the merged board and the apportionment thereof, because we felt that if we couldn't come to some agreement or compromise, I think an agreement would ultimately be some form of compromise, but if we couldn't come together on what that composition of the proposed board would be, that all the other issues seem kind of moot. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would really gain speed here unless we could first resolve that. So that discussion was fairly unanimous. We discussed both of those issues at length, and we just wanted to communicate that to the overall group, that we think those two things, one of them is probably pretty simple, who has to approve it, and the other one may not be so simple, and that is, what would the composition be? And what would the mechanism be? What's the framework for that discussion to occur so that we can get that issue decided, at least preliminarily, and then the other ones may fall into place.
And I think from a timing standpoint, we're going to have to probably do a couple things at the same time, or we're never going to get there from a timing perspective. I mean, and with all due respect to the members that are on this side of the table and your side, we only represent a piece of each of our boards. So if we came up with something that we all agreed on, that doesn't mean really anything as it relates to what our boards individually are going to do. So I think we need to have that conversation. We can certainly have it, but I don't think that should slow up the process. There seems to be, and again, we had a countywide, a 3-county meeting, and there seemed to be some, I'll just say, general receptivity to the idea, to the concept. So you're right that the devil's in the details. So we'll just have to see how that plays out for sure. But I'd hate to presume a decision on those individual boards by what we talk about here.
No, and that you're absolutely right, Commissioner. I just think to be able to go back to our respective boards and say, this is kind of where the direction's going, and get some feedback so that we can come back here and kind of have a bit, an idea. I mean, if we go back to our overall TPO board and there's a majority that says, no way, we're not going to agree to that, then we know to come back here the next time and say, well, Hillsboro's not on board with that. Otherwise, and again, at least establish how we're going to do this. I mean, I think that's key, is whether we're going to do it here and all of us go back to our respective boards, or whether we're going to form some kind of ad hoc working group. I don't know how this is going to work. And that's what we're looking for a little, but we thought that establishing that framework was one of the preliminary things that we need to do. I mean, maybe not to the exclusion of other things at the same time, but we need to work on that soon, because we can get all the funding laid out and everything, and then it fall apart because we can't agree on the composition.
And there is some guidance, isn't there, from an MPO perspective that will kind of guide a little bit of the framework of the consistency?
There is guidance, but this is pretty uncharted territory, and there's some ambiguity in both federal and state statutes. So we'll need some legal guidance. We'll need some legal advice as we go through this as well. The timeline that I've generally laid out, and our staff directors are in agreement, is that 2024 is a year for dialogue. It's a year for us, either jointly or individually, to go and meet with the local government partners in each county, meet with the business community, the chambers, and other key stakeholders, and talk about what's in the report, and mainly listen, ask questions and listen and get feedback. And it's perfect to do that while we're also developing our 2050 long-range transportation plans, because we're asking people about transportation and what do you want to see in the plan, in the cost feasible plan. And I think talking about organization and how decisions get made as part of that conversation makes a lot of sense. So that's what we foresee in 2024, bringing on the management consultant, maybe a legal consultant, a facilitator, to start in early 2025 would be kind of the most substantive step towards resolving some of those questions that Mayor Ross, you've mentioned. And I would just like to plead a little bit of patience, just because we're all going to be really busy adopting these long-range plans. And I think you said it best at our last meeting, we don't want to get ahead of our skis. And so let's do what we're required to do, have the listening conversations, and then bring on the facilitator or the management consultant to help address and resolve those questions. But I think having some scenarios, going out there and talking to people, could be this, could be that, what do you think, would be helpful.
Yeah, Commissioner.
So without being repetitive, because a lot of you heard me say this before, and I understand your points as a planner, that's what you do, you're a planner. That said, several of us here, as I look around, we're elected officials, and we're elected to take action and get things done. And I'm finishing up my 11th year on the county commission, and we have been studying and planning these issues on transportation and public transportation options for our region for as long as I've been on the county commission. And so I guess I'm very concerned about, no matter how much we move the dial and how much we think we're moving forward, we always get stuck with plans and planning and studying and studies. And now we're talking about 2025. So at what point do we say, okay, we've studied this thing to death. At what point do we take action and get something actually done?
Well, the timeline we've outlined would be in probably middle of 2025 to get a confirmation of whether we're moving forward with this. We can maybe do it faster if there's a willingness to do it faster, but it's going to be tough this coming year. We're all, very busy.
I'll be dead before you guys get to it.
I hope not.
Well, the rate we're going,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, again, I'm not, this isn't the county commissions, the 3 county commissions that met. We didn't get into a lot of in-depth dialogue for sure. But I certainly think there was enough interest that said, let's do what we're talking about doing. Let's investigate how it's going to be structured, how the process is going to be laid out, how the conversation with the state's going to continue, because we want to make sure that we're including those folks in. To your point about who's involved in this decision process. Last time, we talked about the city of Tampa having a key role in all of this. So certainly them reaching out to that organization, that group, to see how they feel will be important as well, as we start moving down this path. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there seems to be enough interest for us to move down the path. And to your point, Commissioner Long, I think, the quicker the better. And, let's get to those key decision points. Let's get to those structures that I don't even know what you're talking about, frankly, whether the number of people, the total on the board, how it breaks out. Those are all important pieces that I think are, at least from what I've understood, population driven to some degree. And then who from each of the counties is going to be on there will be a part of it as well. But certainly, yes.
So, if everybody's here, this is a large group. These decisions we're talking about, I don't know how you make them as a large group. Why don't we think about, or would you be willing to think about, inviting the staff to make recommendations to us, to bring back to us, so we can actually have something to look at and agree to move forward on? I mean, you can't get to where we need to be on groupthink, I don't think. I could be totally wrong, but.
Yes, sorry.
Speaking to some of the points made by Commissioners Eggers and Long and Mayor Ross, and also recognizing that it would be difficult to get a large group to wade through some of the very specific details of how a board could be composed. Our board at the November 17th meeting asked us to explore whether we could comprise a willing group of maybe 3 volunteers to dig into the details and then sort through the issues that may need to be considered, and then bring those recommendations back to first the TMA and some of the other entities that would have standing in this decision. And so that's maybe something to think about as we move into 2024. I know for our board, we're going to be deciding which committee assignments our boards will have into next year. So maybe now is not the right time to assign personnel, but I certainly think that would be a decision that should be made very soon in the new year.
Any other? Yes, Mayor.
One more comment. I'll be brief because I've already spoken, but I do think, and I don't know that this was what you said, Whit, but to Commissioner Long's point, I don't think we need to wait till 25 to start having this discussion about the apportionment of the board. I mean, when I go around the region and I talk to my counterparts in Pinellas mostly, but also Pasco, I think all of us have the same concerns, no matter where you're coming from. And even the large cities of Tampa seem to express the same thing. How are we going to ensure that the voices of the smaller communities are still heard? That's a big one for everybody. How are we going to make sure that Tampa, which is obviously a big economic engine, is got the proper apportionment? Then there's the issue of, in Hillsborough, I can't say that our board all agrees on this, but it seems to be the way the wind is blowing. We really want to ensure that the airport and the port are involved in this, and some, that they're a regional transportation entity. So I think some of these issues are looming, and I don't think anything's going to be different in 25. And I think it may take us till 25 to kind of come to, I mean, these are big, hairy questions. And I don't know, maybe what Dr. Long is saying, we form a subgroup. I'm not sure what the framework is, but what I am suggesting is the sooner we define what that framework and process is, the better off we'll be. I don't think we need to wait till we have a management consultant to start having that discussion. That's going to be the hardest one.
I totally agree with you. I have no issues with having, again, I think we can do multiple paths at once. But I do think some of the heavy lifting conversations, we can start doing that. Staff can bring us, 5 suggested, and we won't shoot the messengers, I promise. But 5 suggestions that kind of lay out different philosophies, well, there's 3 counties, so everybody gets 8 plus 1 or something, or there's population, Hillsboro's got more population, so they get a bigger piece of it, and, have different, so we can start having some of that dialogue. Yes, Commissioner.
Thanks. Just to be clear, the apportionment is not up for grabs, because that's under law.
That's what I said
Pro
in the
rata.
beginning, yeah.
Well, you were saying everybody has 8 or something, so that's not something.
No, I didn't say that. In the very beginning conversation, I said, I thought it was population driven.
Oh, I didn't hear you say,
Yeah, when
I
at the very
thought.
beginning, and Witt said that there was some ambiguity about the process about that. So that's why I started with that, because I thought that's where we're frankly starting. So.
Because
Yeah.
as I understand, and we don't have I guess, any counsel here, but as we have heard at our meeting, under law, there has to be proportional representation. I've heard David Gwen say that several times as well. You would confirm that, right? So that I think is not, I'm just saying in terms of the
I agree with you.
way to do it.
Yeah.
I think the question though is, how do you do that population distribution, right? Because you could make there's a lot of flexibility in how you create an MPO. And so you could have a small cities committee, and one member of that committee could be a voting member of the board, and then you apportion the population with the remaining seats, so that's one way to do it. There are MPOs in the country that have a member of the business community who votes. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but there's broad flexibility in federal law. The state statutes put a little more parameters on it. So I'm okay if Johnny and Tania are okay with us, working on some board apportionment concepts, some scenarios, and bringing those back and seeing, what y'all think of it, and doing that as soon as we can in 2024.
Yeah, and I was just throwing out a couple different alternatives. So
yeah,
and I agree with Commissioner Kemp. I really wasn't serious about the 888. I was just throwing that out as like a different concept to bring forward, but bring the ones that are heaped in reality, that give us a chance to at least start talking through it. And we may hit some really key points that we're going to have to address along the way, and go back to respective boards or whatever to get kind of blessings as we go forward. So if that's okay with the board, maybe you all coming up with 3 or 4 or whatever you guys feel is appropriate to have some of that discussion to our next meeting. Is that feasible?
I think we can certainly look at that for the March meeting, I think is our next meeting. Yeah. I think the only question that I have that I would like to get some direction on today would be, do we want to form like a working group of the 3 MPOs? And that may be a question for the respective MPOs, but y'all are doing your appointments in January, is that right, both of you all?
We'll be doing our committee assignments December 13th. So by the first TMA meeting, we'll have new representatives to this group. But because the TMA doesn't meet until February or March, we'll have enough time to onboard them and bring them up to speed about the conversations that have taken place.
Okay.
And to be quite honest, at the staff level, we have already explored a number of different options that could be on the table for how to devise a regional board. And so I don't think that there are many obstacles for us to bring back 3 to 5.
Right. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Good. And then I think to your point, we can start addressing some of those.
Do you all want the TMA leadership group to be that working group, or do you think it could be like a different set of the MPO members? And remember, Pinellas is likely going to a 19-member board whenever the governor approves that.
Well, we're talking a regional product. And
if y'all are comfortable with this forum,
this board is set for that kind of forum discussion. I think that is appropriate. In my mind, I don't want to get a bunch of volunteers doing this. Is important for elected officials to weigh in on. I think.
I'm open. Sounds good to me. Why create another group if we've got one already created?
Okay, so we'll expect those back then in the for the March meeting to have some, yes, Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. If we're going to generate ideas and if there's, if we're going to put non-electeds on the board, and we have our proportional representation, I feel strongly a few things should be taken into account, at least in one of those models, and that's that the non-electeds be taken off the top. If that's what all the counties want, that should be taken off the top, and then the proportional should be the remainder, so that they're not just coming off of Hillsborough's electeds. So that's, I think, important. The other thing is I would suggest that there could be that participation on the board, but that those would not be voting seats, but they would be participating seats.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we just have to kind of, again, we're going down this path together. So if they're going to count on the total number, those volunteers, and if we all agree that we're going to have one each, and we have 25, so now we're down to 22, and then we proportion out that group. Or another alternative would be that maybe Hillsborough thinks it's important to have a business person and Pasco doesn't. And so then it doesn't necessarily come off the top. And those are the kind of conversations we need to have. So just to see how we move forward together on this. Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Along with these examples, I'd like to see, and I think y'all have shown this to us before, what other like regional MPOs have done. What does their makeup look like, just so we have a comparison, especially if you have some similarly sized MPOs that you can show us. I know it was really helpful when we did the reapportionment of Fort Pinellas. You showed us what some other cities were doing, or some other areas were doing. So, thank you.
We can do that. The fun part of all this is that there are 31 flavors of MPOs around the state of Florida and around the country that do things a little bit differently. So we'll try to find some good examples that seem to fit the context of this area. Just going up I-4 a little bit, Metro Plan Orlando does have a mayor's or local government advisory committee, and then one of those people is appointed to vote on the board. So that's an example, and I was suggesting earlier that would have been off the top and not count against the apportionment. So we can look at different concepts like that. So I think we've got some direction for that. Feels good. Are there any other questions about the draft report? I still call it a draft report because this is, still an opportunity to dig into it, make any changes or any questions. But, I'm kind of curious what the legislature is going to say, what the governor's office is going to say, and, give them an opportunity to give us feedback too. Hopefully we'll hear from them before March.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Mariano is online and he has his hand raised. He'd like to make a comment.
Thank you for letting us know. Commissioner Mariano, are you there?
Thank you. Yes, I am. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not there. I'm at a senior game event for Hills, but I have been a little bit. And I'd like to say, as far as the representation for outside, now Pasco doesn't have a port, doesn't have an airport, doesn't have a team, but I do think part of the hub and location point of where these corridors are going to be needed is, at Buck Stadium, at the Emily Arena, at the raised fields, the airport, both airports, and also the port itself. So I think as we set this up, and I don't think you should really, it should affect exactly where the representation comes from each place. But I do think those individuals, those companies, if they want to have representation, that they should be a top priority to put into the mix as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Thank you. So hopefully you'll be at our meeting in March. It'll be an important one. Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts on that? Okay.
I think I'm good,
Okay, good.
unless you all
All right.
need more.
Item 5, any old or new business that anybody wants to bring up, address? And I guess we got a calendar provided to us and everybody's at this point okay. And then when everybody gets new assignments, or hopefully you don't get new assignments, but then things may change. But nothing to vote on there. Do we need to vote on those dates or no?
We don't.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Commissioner, I'm not sure, maybe I missed it. Did we take action on the transmittal of the regional report?
We did not.
Did not. So we'd be looking for a vote to approve.
On the regional, which one?
On
On the letter? On the letter? What?
just submitting the report.
Oh, okay.
Are we in?
Okay.
Is everybody okay? I get,
Yeah.
just.
Okay, so do we have a motion to go ahead and submit the report?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Yes.
We did not call for public comment in the beginning. If we want to take an opportunity to do that now.
Did I miss it on the, yes, I did miss it, sorry. Anybody in the audience that would like to take 3 minutes to speak to the group? And my apologies for not that in the beginning. So everybody who's here wanted to be here and wanted to be here through the whole meeting. That's great. Anything else? Yes, Commissioner Kemp.
So live streaming available via Teams. Is this broadcast? It's available for anyone?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to check. Thanks.
Okay, with that said, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to everybody. Enjoy the festivities and we'll talk to you.
Ellen just raised
Hold
her
on.
hand online.
Okay. This is from the public?
Yes.
Okay. All right, who is calling in to speak on, at the TMA meeting?
I'm Andrew Morris from City of Madeira Beach.
Yes, Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just keep it brief. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about is just like the lack of kind of focus on finding local matching funding. Because basically projects can't move forward if we don't have local matching funds. And I know it's been very tough to pass penny sales at the county level related to transportation. Some states like Georgia do allow for municipalities. They had to change the state law to allow for, and Atlanta managed to pass a half penny one, and they have projects moving forward, like the bus rapid transit project, and they're expanding their light rail up to Pond City Market because they passed that local half penny sales tax at the municipal level. I guess my main thing, I don't know what Bill, but I think if we do want to see better like local and regional transit, like finding that local funding source, or the state has to, because I know right now only the counties can do the referendums, but I so like when you look at the voting, like if Tampa was able to do like a half penny or penny sales tax, or St. Pete, they would most likely pass, and then they'd have like the local funding for bus service, potentially do light rail over the Howard Franklin and all that stuff. So that's my comment. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Thank you for weighing in.
Yep.
Anybody else? All right. Okay. With that said, we are adjourned. Thank you.